Hi, you guys. Mark, time to sit down.
Come on, Mark.
You're keeping the whole thing up. It's fine. You guys can take your seats. Or not, but I guess we probably should at least close the doors in the back of the room because it'll be loud out there for a while. How are you guys doing? Are we good? Thanks for woo-wooing. I appreciate that. It's nice to know you're there. Welcome to Shooting for the Moon. This session is all about dream building, casting a dream for your future and then going after it. We always do some form of this, but this is the first time we've done it in a whole operator room, so that's really exciting. What we intend you to walk away with today is a new perspective on a very old idea, along with some inspiration to propel you forward, leaving AFM. This is not necessarily a Big B thing. We might not actually talk about Big B specifics that much. We believe this is a people thing, and we're here to help grow you as people and grow ourselves as people. And so just so you're ready, we're actually going to talk about like you as a person, not just as an orange-colored person. So we should introduce ourselves first. My name is Laura Ike. I'm the director of the Boost Sphere, which is our leadership and people development program at the home office. I live about 30 miles north of here in a weird little town called Ortonville, Michigan, with my husband and my 2 dogs in a 150-year-old farmhouse, which is a really wonderful challenge. I started with Big B Coffee 6 years ago. My anniversary's in 2 weeks. You can all call me on that day. 6 years ago, and I've had a lot of roles at the home office that have all really led me to this point where I'm getting to work with people on leadership and personal development. And it's a dream role for me right now. I feel like I'm in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, which is a really fantastic feeling, by the way. And one of the things I get to do with people is talk to them about what we're going to talk to you guys about today, which is dream building, goal setting, going after your moonshot. And the amazing thing about it to me is that about 4 years ago, I was still really uncomfortable with this idea. And I had the honor of being invited into the original forum, which is the DeLuca Forum. And turns out a big topic in that first year of forum life was about visioning your future, which was great because I was well practiced at that, which is not true. But luckily, I was surrounded by some really wonderful owner-operators and other home office people who were more comfortable and who taught me a lot of things, which includes the guy sitting next to me, Randy Nealis, who is like a dream-building guru, and that's why he's been invited here today. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks, Laura. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Randy Nealis. I come from a small town, Albion, Michigan, not too far from here. I have a beautiful wife sitting up front here. I have a total of 5 daughters. One of them that works with Margot and Deb in building their empire. My background before I got into the Big B world, I had worked in a restaurant at a young age. Started there washing dishes at the age of 12. Stayed with that company until my early 20s. Ended up going into glass work. From there, going into mechanics, and then got introduced into Big B Coffee. So I have store 455 in the Albion area. 345 in the Albion area. I have store 452 in the Jackson market. Earlier this year, I signed for Eaton Rapids, which is 568, and Jonesville, 571. And we're under development with both of those locations. I was introduced to dream building and manifesting my desires at a very young age, around the age of 19, 20. Took a pretty big step into it, got away from it a little bit because work interfered a little bit. Got back into it in my late 30s and been on track ever since. So that's some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
And before we really jump into the nitty-gritty of goal setting and everything, we want to introduce a concept called the Teachability Index, and I'm going to let you do that.
Okay. So in my late 30s, sitting in a little bit of a forum in front of some very successful individuals. They had taught us the teachability index. And what I had learned that most people have a really high willingness to learn. And what I'm going to ask you to do, if you got a piece of paper in front of you, is jot down a number from 0 to 10 on what you think your willingness to learn new information is that you might be presented today with. And most people will score pretty highly in this area. You know, most people are probably a 7 to a 10. The other variable to this is your willingness to accept change. And when we start talking about change in the way we do things and our behavior and the way we've learned things over the past 20 years, 30 years, 40, 50 years, whatever it may be, if we take that number, 0 to 10, most of us won't score very highly in that area. We don't feel comfortable with new change. So if we sit there and say, for an example, you know, you scored yourself a 10 on the willingness to learn new information, but change is a 0. 10 times 0 is still 0. So when I come into a presentation or something like that, or if I'm going to sit at a co-op meeting, I'm always reevaluating myself on what is my teachability index when I walk into that room. How willing am I to learn new information from other operators, other owners, and what is my willingness to change what I'm doing today? So that's one of the things we want you to think about going through this presentation today.
So keep that in mind as we go throughout the day. Like I said, we've done goal setting sessions, dream building sessions at all the AFMs. You've read books. You are like inspirational people that go after big things already. So we know you know a ton about what we're going to talk about today. But when you find yourself saying, I already know all of this, and you find yourself checking out, just re-engage, lean in, look for the thing you haven't thought of yet or the different way of trying something new. And we'll also reference it later, so keep it in mind. Don't totally forget this. Also, as a language check-in, Randy and I are both well practiced at using our different words for things like goal setting and dream building. When we're talking about like the biggest future dreams that you have, Randy will usually use the phrase dreams and desires. I might use the phrase moonshot, though I also use the words dreams or dream building. That's what we mean by dreams, desires, moonshot, dream building, BHAG. We might use all of these different words interchangeably for that really far away goal. For the more tangible, the future that you can see right now, the things you're actively working on right now, we'll probably use the word goal, just so you know. We might even use the word objective. We'll find out, but try to stick with us. We learned we couldn't adjust our language to each other, so we just stubbornly keep using our own language, and that'll have to be okay for today. Okay, are we ready to jump in?
Yes.
Now we've got some things in mind. Awesome. So today we tried to keep it really simple. Because it is a simple concept, set a dream, go after it. But we're going to break it down a little bit. If you are a note taker, this might be the one slide that you take a note on if you're into that kind of thing. But this is what we're going to walk through today so that you know what to expect. The first thing we are going to discuss and share stories from is the process of casting your dream, casting that faraway vision, and having that faraway vision illuminate the path of the goals that you have to take in between. The second thing is to visualize and emotionally connect to that dream. And in that section, by the way, we're going to ask you to try something new, and that'll be exciting and different and the fun kind of uncomfortable. The third section is going to be the process of sharing and connecting with other people who are also chasing after these big dreams. And then we'll hit you with some words on unrelenting focus at the very end, because that's how you carry yourself forward. So the first section is casting your dream. Some people aren't into goal setting, and that's okay, but we want to talk about why casting a dream, setting a goal even matters. So why does it matter?
So for me, if I don't set a goal or a long-term dream or desire, I have no sense of direction. And Earl Nightingale states it in his audio, The Strangest Secret. It's like putting a ship out in the ocean without a captain at the helm. The ship has no sense of direction. It's never going to get to its destination. There's nobody there to guide it. So for me, setting that big dream or that desire keeps me focused on where I'm going as an individual or as a company.
And really, practically speaking, we are going to reference Big B here, is you all have stores. A lot of those stores have goals, but if you don't have a goal set for your store, you aren't going to see growth. You aren't. You have to set a goal that's beyond where your store is at right now so that your team has something to rally behind, so that they have something to work towards. Your store leader, your ship captains at your Big B stores have to be bought into those goals, or your store will not progress. And I know everybody in this room wants their stores to progress, want them to be profitable, want them to be doing more cups tomorrow than they're doing today. So you have to set a destination, or you won't get anywhere.
Yes.
There are some things that get in our way of goal. Well, last time I asked you this, you said this has never happened. I asked Randy, I thought I would get a different answer. I asked him if anything had ever gotten in the way of him setting a goal or wanting to set a goal. And
I said no.
Yeah.
But I think that it does change. So, I mean, you could set a dream or a goal out there, and just because it doesn't turn out the way you want it to, it doesn't mean that it's not getting to where you set out to go. So I would say yes and no to that question this time.
Thanks, that's nice. We are going to talk about some things that get in people's way, practically speaking, though. And one of those things is fear. I know when I was first challenged with this and I was so uncomfortable with it in the DeLuca Forum, one of those things I was afraid of was that I was going to write something down or set some sort of goal and then not achieve it. And I'm someone who likes to achieve, and I like to accomplish my goals, and I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of writing something down that didn't happen. And that was the most amazing thing is, so far when I've written down a goal, I haven't experienced that. By writing down a goal, by setting a vision, by casting this dream, I've actually spoken some sort of truth into reality, and it's always happened. And so I'm learning to just put that fear aside. I don't even have to face that fear. I've just put that fear aside. There's also the possibility of skepticism from people. If I'm a young person who says I'm going to accomplish these big, crazy things in my life, which I intend on doing, there's the chance that someone is going to say, you can't do that. Like, you're a girl, or you are young, you don't have enough experience. There's all these things that I could be greeted with.
Right.
But thankfully, I'm part of this Big B community where
Support.
yeah, it's an extremely supportive community where so far that hasn't been a problem either. So we're going to put that fear aside. There's also letting the how get in the way of the why.
Yes.
I think you can talk about that one.
So the why is that dream and that desire, and the how is what we always try to figure out. When I was developing the store 452 in the Jackson market, and I had already opened 345. I'd been established for a couple of years, and I went to the same bank to finance my store number 2, and I was told no. And for me, the store 452 was my dream. It was on my dream board at the time. And not only on the dream board, the address of that location and everything in Jackson was that dream. So when I was told no, I could have just said, well, it's not going to happen, or gave up on it. And instead of doing that, I kept focused on the why, and eventually the store did develop. The circumstances on the way it developed is kind of remarkable. I was told no by the bank, so I couldn't get it financed. Another individual stepped in and bought the piece of property that was going to be my location, and I just couldn't figure out why the dream wasn't coming true. And About 2 weeks later, the realtor had called me from RE/MAX and stated that the individual that bought this piece of property would like to meet me. So I ended up going down to RE/MAX in Jackson and sitting down with the realtor, and this gentleman that I had never met walked in, ended up being Gene Davis, which is a very successful restaurant owner in the Jackson market, and offered me the exact same deal that I was getting from the bank to purchase this piece of property off of him. So the point is, I didn't lose focus on the why. I stayed focused and I didn't worry about how it was all going to happen. I just stayed focused, and I still achieved the goal that I set out to achieve.
I had a similar experience, not with a Big B coffee store, but personally, a year ago, February, my sister called me and said, I'm going to run a half marathon in a year, which was the Princess Half Marathon in Walt Disney World. And she said, you want to run it with me? Piece of context that's important to know is that I had never run more than 3 miles in my life, and that was when I was in high school, and my high school track coach, I was a sprinter, he made me go run 3 miles out of punishment for being late to practice one day. And so I had to run 3 miles, and that was the longest I had ever run, and I hadn't run in years, and I don't know why Liz called me, but this idea of running a half marathon sounded like a really fabulous challenge that I wanted to find out if I could. Basically, I wanted to prove that I could. I'm also really competitive, and so if my sister calls me, like, challenge accepted. I'm on board with that. I had no idea how to run a half marathon. The farthest I had run in the best shape of my life was 3 miles, and now she's telling me I have to run 13. And then she said, as long as we're going, let's go ahead and just do the whole fairy tale challenge, which is to run a 10K one day and then a half marathon the next day. And I was like, I guess if I'm going to do all this training, I might as well get the extra t-shirt that you get for running the 10K. And I got on board, and I got so fired up about this idea of finding out how far my body can take me. But I could have so easily said, I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to run all those miles. I didn't even have proper running shoes. I had, like, cross trainers that were about 7 years old and really beat up, and I could have gotten stuck on the how, but I chose to just lean into the why, and that propelled me forward. And this last February, I ran a 10K and a half marathon, and I ran every step of that race, and now I'm going to run a marathon next January, so that's fun. But the focus is that all of these, oh, thanks. That's nice. You want to come? Anyone want to run a marathon with us? The point of all these is that you have power over these.
Right.
These are self-imposed barriers. And that's what we want to make sure you know. The fear of failure, the skepticism of others, these are the focusing on the how instead of the why are all things we do to ourselves.
Right.
You can change it. You will.
Focus on the why, for sure.
And if you haven't done this before, we should probably talk a little bit about where you even begin with
Yes.
setting goals. So where do you start, Randy?
So when I learned how to start setting my goals, we used a simple book, which is a dream book, and we were taught to use white paper and blue ink. And we were told that blue ink stimulates the mind in a more positive way than any other color. So being these individuals were more successful than I was, I listened to them, which made sense to me. So back then, we would just write down, whenever we had an idea, it might be just a short-term goal. It could develop itself into a long-term dream or desire. We'd write it down. And after a period of time, you would define that dream or desire for its achievement or fulfillment. Nowadays, we have more modern technology to where I started using the label maker that we have in most of our stores, and I would sit there and type out a bunch of labels, and I would just put them up on my bathroom mirror. And the screen you're looking at right now was, a lot of those were put on prior to January of this year, and a few of them was like around January 10th, like probably Jonesville and Eaton Rapids, and I hadn't even signed for those locations or even went and gave a presentation on obtaining those franchise agreements. But I did put them on my mirror, and I did end up getting those franchise agreements. Long-term goal up there, or a dream that my wife and I hold, is to have the 5-bedroom house on Mackinac Island overlooking Lake Huron. That's a long-term dream. I don't have a date on it. I just know it's going to happen. And that's basically what I do today, more so. I still write them down, but they get transferred onto the mirror. I also have them on my phone, so that every time I look at my phone, they're there. So for me, it's really good for me to look at them on a regular basis, feel good about my dreams and my desires. And for me, it's always been that feeling, feeling good and achieving them.
I also believe in being really specific about goals, and I like to start with the biggest thing I can imagine. And so I set this farthest dream that I can. I call it my moonshot. The thing you see on the screen is actually from a book called the Big B Freestyle Visioning Tool. And theoretically, I would have that in my hands, but I left it in my hotel room. So it's up there. I'll show you later. But what we do on there is we set that moonshot, that biggest thing we can imagine for our life. And then we get specific about it. And so that part that says describe your lunar landscape, you probably can't read my writing. Don't worry about it. Don't try to read it. But that's where we get really specific with what this goal means to us personally. You had a story from your wrestling days about why being really specific matters.
Yeah, so when I was coaching wrestling in my late 30s, early 40s, the freestyle team and myself, I was still competing at the time too, and we set out a goal at the time to go to this tournament and come home with all the gold medals, everybody on the team. And a few of us had lost some matches. And one of the things we didn't think about was in freestyle, it's a point system based on points scored on a decision. So even though a few of us had lost some matches, we still all had gold medals that day, including myself. I'd lost a match, but I still obtained a gold medal. So we figured out that we wanted to be undefeated. We didn't want to just come home with the gold medal. We wanted the gold medal and be undefeated both. So we redefined that goal for the next tournament. So that's why it is good to define that goal that you're going after, or that dream.
And it finds definition over time. Do you ever change your goals?
Yes.
Do you do that lightly? Do you do that often, or is it a pretty big process to change?
No, it's not a big process to change. As you go through life, things start to change in that, and I think you define that goal or that dream to its fullest. So I have changed some of my dreams and goals over time. I remember back in my early 20s when I first got introduced to dream building, I had drawn out my floor plan of my house. And my goal was at that time, or dream, was to have that house built by the time I was 45. And I've been living in that house with my wife for 17 years now, okay? And I'm not that old. So, and the thing that's remarkable, if you look at that drawing and where the house is today, and that it's not exact, because over time in that, I defined that dream a little bit more, but it's pretty close. And it's pretty awesome.
And some of that, so I know there's home office people in the room like cringing when I talk about having the option of changing a goal, because we talk about like sticking to it and going after it. But really, I think what we find out is that it's really just a first draft of a dream, or because you've achieved something so much sooner than you expected, you got a new dream to set. My moonshot has gone through a few drafts that have never been a change of direction, but it's always been the thing that was just beyond the horizon that I couldn't see until I spent some time visualizing the reality of when that goal would be achieved. So my moonshot right now is to grant $1 million to Make-A-Wish Foundation throughout my life. And that started several iterations ago with loving people. And it's gone through this whole process. It went from loving people to like loving people specific ways to taking them with me on journeys to Disney World. It was a phase I was in. And it's gone through this whole process of drafts over time that didn't change the direction. It just got more and more specific as I spent time visualizing it, which is the next thing we wanted to talk about. That was the segue. So visualizing and emotionally connecting, I think this is the most important part of goal setting beyond setting a goal in the first place. And the process that we go through is a little bit different. So what does visualization process look like for you, Randy?
So Brandy and I had the opportunity to go away on our anniversary at the end of June this year, and we decided to go up to our favorite place up on Mackinac Island. So, and we were leaving the kids home with my mom, which was awesome. So we decided to do a little bit of visualization. So what I did is I loved the bicycle around the state of Michigan for the most part. So I took my road bike along with me, and we ended up taking some Big B coffee with us, and we were going to do some visualization on the island. And my wife's a good sport, so she's going to play along with me. So we would get up in the morning and have our coffee. Brandy would go out and have a walk, and we're role playing as if we're on this island, living on this island. And I would get up in the morning, get on my bicycle, have my cup of coffee, go out and ride on the island. Now, I typically ride distance, so on an 8-mile island, I had to go around it several times to get, some miles on it. So if you're going to put 60 miles on a bike and it's only 8 miles, you got to do some laps. So we went through the whole process of role playing that you're right there, and it's the visualization. So I'm out riding, I'm taking in the smells of the lilac trees, the fudge shops downtown, even right down to the manure that's on the roads from the horses on the island. And the thing that's remarkable about it is it's the feeling you get when you're doing this. So, it just makes it, in your own mind that it's much more achievable for that dream to come true. Towards the end of our trip up there we had to make sure that we got a picture, so we ended up getting up on a porch and taking a picture of us actually being, in a house there on the island as if we owned it. So that was really cool, and that's visualization to me. I mean, that's like going full steam into visualization. We even went along to, when I'm back home we subscribe to the local paper that we get delivered to our house every other week so that we can do this visualization process on our own porch at home. So it's pretty awesome.
So every time Randy tells this story, I always think, wow, visualization is important enough that he was willing to trespass on people's property and break the law.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. For me, visualization, I don't always have the chance to maybe go do this role-playing activity, and so it's mental preparation. I actually always think of the movie Cool Runnings. Anybody a Cool Runnings fan? It's the Jamaican bobsled team movie. Yeah, okay. And in that movie, the driver of the bobsled sits in the bathtub the night before the race, and he's closing his eyes and going through the curves of the course, and a lot of athletes do this. And for me, when I was preparing for this half marathon that I didn't know how to run, I did have one piece that I could visualize because I had watched my sister run the marathon the year before. And so the part of the course that I knew was the finish line, because I sat there as a spectator, as a mighty spectator, for a long time. And so this was the part of the course that on my training runs, whenever I was feeling like stopping, or I felt like my legs hurt too much, or I was too hot or too cold, or it was too snowy, which was all the time last year, I spent some time at that finish line, and I would picture the curve that I didn't know what came before it, but I would picture the curve where I knew I would see the spectator bleachers, and I knew I would see confetti on the ground from when the first place people finished a long time ago. I knew I would see some Mickey and Minnie characters waiting for us and ready to high-five us, and I pictured that moment, and that always kept my legs moving during a training run. I still do that, by the way, because now I'm training for a longer thing. The coolest experience about this, though, was when I got to watch this thing that I had been visualizing for a year come true. So in February, when I went to do this run, I knew it was coming because I was in Epcot, and that's at the very end of the run. And I kept thinking every corner I was going around, I must be reaching that bleacher-filled finish line stretch. And I was so excited. I was almost in tears. I think I might have been in tears if there was like any liquid left in my body, but I couldn't quite cry, but my face was doing a weird thing. And the coolest thing was I was so ready for this visualization to come true. I was already emotionally heightened. And I found out that there's this magical piece just before the finish line, which is you're going through the backstage at Epcot, and all of a sudden there is a choir, a literal gospel choir, that's called the Hallelujah Chorus, apparently, because you're almost at the finish line. And they were singing about, like, strong women, and you've got this, and, like, huge accomplishment. And I was like, oh, my, like, these people are like angels. I thought maybe I was hallucinating them because I couldn't believe this thing was true. And so this already emotionally heightened moment where I was about to watch my visualized goal become a reality, I now have this extra piece of, like, beautiful, motivating pictures for practicing for the marathon, because I've now learned that the Hallelujah Chorus is always there. And then I still got to curve around that next curve and see the spectators, and I found my family in the stands. My sister, who had finished a long time before me because she's ridiculous, was up there cheering, and it was so amazing to watch that visualization become reality. And so now I'm even more motivated to visualize everything that I've set forth. I even visualize when I get to work every day, what am I going to accomplish? How am I going to feel accomplishing that goal? I'm ready for all of it. I think it's important.
Absolutely.
I think something else that visualization does is it allows you not just to emotionally connect to a goal, but it also helps you validate the goal that you have. If you're spending time visualizing this thing coming true and it doesn't feel that great, or it doesn't feel like how you want it to feel, it might be that you just have that first draft goal and that there's something else to discover that's beyond that first goal. Did you also visualize something about Eaton Rapids?
Yes. So a few weeks back, there was a perk training going on at corporate, and my 18-year-old daughter that works for me at the Albion Market, I was sending her to perk training along with 2 other baristas. And they had been at my house, and I was going up to corporate to work with Laura on this presentation. And so we all rode up together. And I'm still in negotiation with a lease agreement there in that Eaton Rapids Market, but while I'm driving down M99, it just kind of popped into my mind that I do a little bit of visualization here with my baristas. And I just kind of drove through the parking lot and drove up to the building as if I've already developed the drive-through there, and they just kind of followed me. And then I pulled out front, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, just imagine this store being developed, 568, and imagine as if you're greeting the customers that are coming in the door here." And then we ended up getting in the vehicle, and we went up to Lansing the rest of the way. But I'll do things like that.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
Another experience I've had was, again, from that Big B Freestyle Visioning tool. It walks you through a series of questions that we're actually going to walk through together in just a second, so get ready. And one of the questions that it asks you is, what do you want your life to look like at the end of your life? Which is a heavy question to ask people, but I spent some time with that question, and I had all these descriptions. I'm somewhere warmer because I get cold a lot, and there's other details that are in my answer, but what I realized was at the end of my life, I expect there to be grandbabies. And I'm not someone who's ever been like, I'm going to have all the kids. In fact, I was someone who was like, I'm going to have all the dogs and not the kids. But I realized that the only way to make grandbabies happen is by having kids first. And so that was a powerful moment for me. I threw my book on the ground out of anger and like that realization of, oh my gosh, I'm committing to have kids and I now need to go talk to my husband. And so that was just a moment of spending time in my future. If I hadn't done that, I might not have discovered that I want grandbabies and therefore kids. I'm still working on that one. So we're going to try something because I think we've told enough stories about us and it's kind of time for you guys. And this is one of those moments where we're going to remind you of your teachability index. And if we're going to accomplish new, big, crazy things in our life, we have to inherently try new, weird, crazy things. And so we're going to practice something. It will require you to close your eyes, and it will require you to be quiet. And we're in an active building, so I know that there will be sounds that happen and things that happen outside the doors out there. And I just want you to try and stay focused and stay present in this room. And so we're going to jump in. And so I'm going to ask everybody, close your eyes. If you want to put your feet on the floor so that you feel stable, that's fine. I'm going to close my eyes too. Don't worry, everyone's doing it. Don't wonder what the person next to you is doing. And I'm going to ask you to keep breathing because sometimes people forget. And imagine with me the best feeling moment of the last month for you. What was the moment that felt the absolute best? And what was that feeling? What was happening around you that caused that feeling? What were you doing and who were you doing it with? Go ahead and feel that feeling for a second. As you hold on to that feeling, go ahead and look forward into your future and ask yourself, how do you want every day to feel? Do you want it to feel comfortable? Exciting? Adventurous? Calm? How do you want your life to feel every day? Don't forget to keep breathing. What do you want your life to look like? Who do you want around you? Where do you want to spend every day? Where will you be in 2 years? What will you be doing? Who will be sitting around your dinner table? Where will you be in 20 years? How old will you be? What will you have learned between now and then? What will you have accomplished? Who are you with? Okay, when you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath and open your eyes. If you want to take a second and write anything down, we did plant some blue pens on your table. And you have a notebook that you got handed when you checked in that you can write them in. But that's all the process of visualization is. It's spending some time knowing where you're going so that you don't have to worry that much about where you are right now. Good?
That's awesome.
Did you stay awake?
I did.
Good. The next step in the process is sharing with somebody. And sharing enhances the belief factor in what you've said, because now you've actually said it to somebody. There's that first process of writing it down where it becomes real because you can see it in writing. And then as soon as you say it to someone, it's like a new level of reality, because now someone could ask you how it's going achieving that dream. It gives you a chance to help people. And so Randy and I had a story happen as we were creating this class, which was really cool. I was talking to him the first time we sat down. We were hanging out in the training center at the home office, and I was telling him my Make-A-Wish dream. And I was showing him the moonshot pages and describing what it would feel like to, on the last person that I can raise money for Make-A-Wish, having them meet me at the finish line at the Walt Disney World Marathon, and how it would smell when I get there and all of this stuff. And Randy's looking at me with a skeptical look on his face, and he says, "Do you know what I'm doing in a couple weeks?" And I said, I don't know. And he's like, "I'm riding on a 300-mile bike race from Traverse City down to the southern border of Michigan to raise money for a little girl named Amelia who's part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation." And I was like, oh my gosh, Randy, this is an opportunity. This is a how I didn't know about. This was something I could engage in for my own dream building purposes, because this can be the first thing I financially support on this journey for Make-A-Wish. But it also gave me this new emotional connection to what I was doing, because he had some other things to share about Make-A-Wish Foundation and how in need they are. And, well, hold on one second.
Okay,
the other cool thing, because he wasn't there for this part, the cool thing that happened after that was I had the chance to go back and tell the whole home office about it, because we had a staff meeting that Friday. And I said, you guys, if you are in Ionia, they were passing by the Ionia store on their journey at some point, and you have time to go cheer them on, do that. If not, if you guys can help spread the word, he's trying to raise money, haven't hit the goal yet, all this stuff, got the social media team on it, everything like that. And that gave me a chance to support Randy, and some cool stuff happened after that.
Yeah, so the idea behind the WHAM ride, we ride from, we get on the buses and the semi-trailers take all our bikes and all our gear up to Traverse City, and we get on at Eaton Proving Grounds in Marshall, Michigan. So there's about 1,000 riders, and the goal is to raise as much money as we can for kids that have wishes, that are receiving chemo treatment, and this young lady that I was had the privilege to raise money for had a wish to go meet Minnie Mouse in Disney. So it was kind of ironic that here we are sharing, and we both have a similar goal there. So I formed a team, called it Big B Coffee, developed some Big B Coffee jerseys and bibs, and that's what bikers wear, bicyclists wear. And I tried to build a team. So my idea was to build a 4-man team. You are required, because this is a fundraising event, each rider is required to raise $1,200 each. So times 4, that'd be $4,800. And I started about 2 months prior to the event. So one of my buddies in that rides with me all the time, we do a lot of different rides in that, he kept coming to me and he's like, I'm not getting any donation. So, he's throwing the how into it all the time. How am I going to get more donations? I'm not going to be able to ride this ride. And I'm like, Ron, don't worry about it. Just follow the dream, the goal that we got set. It'll happen. So through sharing, we started seeing the numbers start to climb. We boarded the buses on a Thursday in Marshall, Michigan. I was looking at my Facebook site through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. We were still a little shy of the money. By the time we got up to Traverse City, we were getting closer to our goals at about $3,600 on an average apiece, so we knew all 3 of us were going to be able to ride. And the team goal was still set at $4,800. By Friday, thanks to Store 217 Charlotte, we not only hit the individual goals, but we went over top of the team goal with only 3 members. So we ended up raising $5,084. And I thank Gail and her staff for putting out a little collection bucket there and matching those goals or those dollars for us to get us up over that mark. And then from there, we started our truck down the state. So we ride 100 miles each day, working our way all the way down the state. On the 3rd day, we started out at Grand Ledge High School. We rode right across Grand Ledge in through Mason, Holt, down into Leslie, back across through Springport, Albion area, and then back into Marshall is where we finished. And you get into the proving grounds there, and then you do the last ride around the track and to the finish line. And then once you finish, you get to meet the young lady that you're riding for, and on the screen right now is Amelia. And that was probably one of the most awesome things I've done as far as a dream or a goal right there. And we're in the works right now. We got 3 additional team members for next year. So anybody that would like to be a part of this team, I'd be more than happy to have you on it, that's for sure.
And we think sharing is so important that we are actually going to both challenge and sort of bribe you, which is I have 10 raffle tickets because I took them. And I want to give these to the first 10 people who are willing to come tell us your biggest dream right now. You will be met with support and encouragement, and we will give you all of the love we can after we're done. Sorry, I should have. Thank you, guys. Great enthusiasm. So after we're done, once we wrap everything up, just come talk to us, and we'd love to hear that, mostly because we don't have time to share them out loud right now. But to everybody, because that's only for 10 people, to everybody, the challenge is to share your biggest dream with somebody today. You've all been sitting in this room together. You've all heard the same words, and we want you to go find someone, hopefully a stranger, because that's really kind of exciting, and just say, hey, can I share my dream with you? And then share it with them and find out what happens, because really amazing things happen when you share with people. Our last bit is on focus and unrelenting focus. And the idea of becoming what you think about. And can you talk about that a little bit, Randy?
Yes.
Pretty quickly, because I think we have like a minute.
Okay. So for me, and that's why I use my mirror all the time, because I go to the bathroom, to shower, brush your teeth, whatever that may be. And for me, the focus is always, put me in that good mood, that good feeling state, going over my dreams and my desires that I have up there, and including my short-term goals. And it's always been a feeling for me, and I like that focus, and that's why I keep it on my phone too, because, when we get a lot of work involved and some of the negativity that we get throughout a day's time, it's real simple to grab your phone and look at what those dreams are in that, and know why what you're doing is the right thing to be doing. So
the simplest metaphor is when we're driving, and when you're looking at either an accident or a police car or flashing lights or whatever that you see on the other side of the road, you inevitably start drifting in that direction.
Yeah.
That's it. We become what we think about. And if you're always worried about the how, then all of the worries that you come up with related to the how are probably going to manifest themselves. If you're worried about not being able to run 7 miles on one day, you're not going to run 7 miles on that day, because you've already put that barrier in place for yourself. And so focus, unrelenting focus on the why.
One thing I just want to add, a lot of people will hesitate to set those big dreams or desires. And, I always think back that when I was a kid and that it was no problem to tell your parents whatever you wanted. And most of the time when Christmas come along or your birthday or whatever, you got what you wanted. That was your dream as a kid, and you achieved that. Even though it come from the form of your parents, you still achieved it, and it's no different today. But we kind of let the money side of it and some of the things that go on in our daily lives get in the way of that. And, some people don't set their dreams high enough, and I challenge you to do that. Because if we talk about money, you feel it's easy to produce $100, but you can still set that desire to be $1 million. It can be $1 billion. It can be anything.
So one more time, really quickly, it's simple. Cast the dream, visualize and emotionally connect to it, share with somebody today, and then focus. Stay focused on your dream. Find a way to keep it front and center every day. We want you to know that you are in full control of your life and what happens, and all you have to do is decide how big you want to go. How far do you want to take this? How far do you want to run? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.